and I started.
Well, would you like to intro me, or shall I just begin, or what should we do?
I introduced you already to the guys here, but you're Gary Capps. Everybody knows you. You're the biggest guru in the bureaucratic method, and I don't know much about you besides from from on the, but maybe you got more to say to introduce yourself properly. So I guess, I mean, the guys here, they don't know you from the chat rooms because they are not on the chat rooms. However, I have like 4 people here. Where is Ruti? Well, currently it's 3. The 4th one should be here, and the 3 of them have been to court already. So
Okay.
they know the method. They studied it. They went to court.
So
For the how much?
I'm sorry. Dealing with a little delay.
Yeah. אוקיי. איפה רותי?
אין מושג, הנה רותי.
Hold on, רותי is joining us, and וואו, אולי תעמוד בצורה לחסן את האור.
בדיוק מה שאני בודק. אני הפוך למין.
זה שם, ואז לאורך אנחנו חשבנו משתי הזרים של השולחן.
לשים שמה?
לא, שם דווקא.
שמה? הפוך? אוקיי.
Un momento.
כן.
פשוט נשב, כמו בני אדם. Okay, now everybody can see you, and you can start.
All right. Well, I thought something I'd talk about today, and just to kind of ease in, not knowing who would have what familiarity. It's essentially the 1, 2, 3. It's 3 segues. I'll get into why they matter. When speaking with a judge, in this case, in a court case, that is trying to avoid talking about certain issues. So, just to preface that.
You were cut for like a whole minute. We lost you for a whole minute.
All right. All right. I'll try to start over a little bit. So in essence, what I wanted to talk about was something that can be used when talking to judges about something that they don't want to talk about.
They don't want?
Don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
All right. And when you're trying to talk to a judge about something that leads towards you being free, towards an innocence, they don't very much like to talk about that. And so we tend to have to fight a bit with them trying to brush us off and to get towards a conviction. And the main reason is because they can't imagine a situation where you're both innocent and unwilling to participate. So we have basically 4 categories of people where you could be innocent or guilty. In fact, whether it's known or not, you could be innocent or guilty. And in addition, you could be willing to be there and want to have yourself put through an arraignment and trial, or you could be unwilling. So in essence, you can be anywhere from guilty and willing all the way to innocent and unwilling. And for lawyers, it's very hard for them to talk and imagine and keep in mind the idea that someone could be innocent and not willing to participate in their process.
Yeah, if you're innocent, what do you have to hide?
I'm sorry, Al, could you say that again?
the mentality of like if you got nothing to hide, then why don't you talk?
Yeah. So to them, the innocent have nothing to hide. They don't want. They want to participate in this legal process in their eyes, in their thinking. Now, if someone who is in fact innocent, whether it's known to anyone or not, and not willing to participate, is forced into a situation where they are, that then becomes a victim. The innocent participant who doesn't want to participate is the victim. And asking them about that and clarifying that can lead towards getting a little bit more going on the side of them contemplating why you should be informed and why they should give deference, like give respect to the idea that you should be left in peace until you've been proven guilty. And then you should have the opportunity to prove that that is incorrect. So it's kind of a backwards idea from what our current systems are, where you're dragged in and you're given this benefit of proving that you're not guilty, or to countering that proof. Still connected? All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Every second we're like, it's a miracle. It's a miracle.
Lior.
Yeah, I am.
All right. So this concept really doesn't happen to them, and the difficulty that arises because of that was one where people would come back from court and just one after the other, they'd say, I just got myself into a conversation where I couldn't find a way to continue talking about the topic. Like they'd give you a big speech and they'd say you shouldn't discuss these things. And then they just say, well, I couldn't figure out how to continue talking about my innocence, or talking about that I should get information, or talking about the idea even that I could be innocent. And so they said, well, I just pled not guilty so that we could move on. So that because he was just getting angry and I was afraid or something. And it's happened over and over again. And the trouble is that at the initial part of when you're interacting with a judge, that's where you're really wanting to get information about how to proceed. Whether you go into a legal defense or anything, that initial conversation is where you're getting the information about what you're accused of and things like that in order to strategize. And even they recognize that if you don't get information, it's really not possible for you to choose lawyers, build defenses, object properly, like make objections or make motions. Without the information, it's really impossible to do any of these things. So the trouble coming back was people would just plead not guilty just to get to another step because they were just locked up in this puzzle and didn't know what else to do. Thinking about that, I found so far three, we call them segues, three topic changing points so that you can get back to the conversation again that you're trying to get had, even though the judge doesn't want to have that conversation. So it's three kind of points that are kind of always true about the situation, but lets you ask your question again. So for instance, if you asked a question of, are you presuming that you don't have jurisdiction right now? They wouldn't want to talk about that. They try to lead that off. They try to change the topic without answering such a question. Because in fact, they are presuming that they have jurisdiction and they really don't care about any evidence one way or the other, if they have jurisdiction or don't. So the first one is, goes back a ways, and Mark Stevens has been a great champion of bringing to the forefront, is the intent to plead guilty. that if you can prove a couple key pieces, or if you can show evidence of a couple key pieces, then I don't even care to argue against that evidence. I'll just plead guilty and we'll be done with all of this. What that's designed to do is to keep you in the conversation of, instead of going towards a trial and hashing it all out at a next step, that you're keeping this conversation, just like, inform me of this evidence, whatever the evidence is, and then we could skip trial. My intention's not necessarily to draw it out to trial. It kind of depends on the information, but my intention is to plead guilty. And that is the first one, is my intention is to plead guilty except for the information that I don't have yet. So what I'm missing is information, not an intent to fight. And that brings it back to, I'm trying to get information. And so in this trying to get information, I'm trying to talk about, for instance, why I'm not presumed innocent, or that you're not really presuming me innocent, or trying to pretend to presume innocence. Number two, the second segue, is related to the gun in the room, the threats of violence. Now, maybe it's not literally a gun in the room. Maybe it's more just that you're not free to leave. You can't just walk out and be in peace. They're going to drag you back at some point. And that's whether or not you're guilty, whether or not you're willing. That the point in number two is, I'm just here in order to be safe, in order to be safer than if I just left. And the reason that sometimes brings it back to your conversation is, for instance, when they say, you know, I'm tired of you talking here, I'm going to have you come back in next month for a trial. We're done. Well, there's number two is like, well, I'm just here to try to get my safety, better accounted for. And that leads you back into the conversation that he was trying to drag away from and change the topic on. All three of these have good uses at different times. It kind of depends on what the judge is trying to yank you away from, and how they're trying to change the topic. The third thing, which really kind of brings it back home, is that the prosecutor, the guy who's accusing you, he's failed to do a key piece of what he was supposed to do. And that is usually in things like we most concern ourselves with sometimes is accusations where it's just, you are accused of being disobedient. You're accused of smoking something you weren't supposed to smoke, drinking something you weren't supposed to drink. So the prosecutor's failure to say why you owed them obedience, just in a general sense. So it's a prosecutor. I'm sorry?
It's always like the public safety. They always refer to, you're a ticking bomb, you're dangerous to society. Kids, that marijuana could get to kids. We don't know if you would sell it later for kids. You could ruin kids' lives. And may I just add one more point to it, that the big fallacy is that they equate a dangerous situation with a situation that could potentially become dangerous. So a dangerous situation that with some probability can cause some injury, and there's like if you own a car, if you own a car, can charge you with putting people in danger because you could take the car and drive in a red light. Now, driving in a red light is kind of dangerous, but owning a car is not the same thing as driving a red light. And when you have weed, they say, well, you're a danger to public because you could take that weed and sell it to kids, and then their life could, they're adding another imaginary step.
There's a problem with the dog. Well, not exactly a problem. It can become a problem.
Unfriendly dog.
Difficult. I have a difficult job. Sorry for cutting it for so long.
Oh, no, please.
Because yeah, obedience.
So the hypothetical injury, so the potential, like the chances of something going wrong. And the idea being that if you're obedient, then things are safer. And so they're trying to leverage in that any decrease in safety causes you to owe them obedience. Now the question is, do they do that in a formal sense? Like if you're being accused by a prosecutor in front of a judge, are they saying that one of the necessary things is that they're going to show that you increase the risk to other people by a certain amount? Or just that they hypothetically are riskier?
But decided legally, so just have to prove that you had the wrong kind of plant. And then they say, okay, that's the whole proof we need.
Well, is that the standard of proof then comes into question? Because they're saying all the proof we need is that we feel.
No,
yes?
they have a legal presumption. They're relying on the presumption in law. And
I'm sorry,
it's like,
I understand what a presumption is. What is a presumption in law?
well, they have a law. The law says if the law says marijuana is considered dangerous, but you have the right to prove otherwise. But
all right.
Prosecutor is being taught that he should presume a person is dangerous, and he doesn't have to prove that he is dangerous. He doesn't have to bring scientific proof that it is dangerous. All he needs to, that's what he's doing every day, for all his career. So it looks sort of normal. Like
so how did this? It's a backwards burden of proof. So they're saying we're going to presume you guilty, but give you the opportunity to prove otherwise. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. In some countries, that's called strict liability.
No, that's something else.
No,
that's something else.
Well, help me out.
Strict liability is when you don't, when they don't have to prove the intention or the awareness. So you knew that the crime was happening, or you knew that there was a negligence, and in strict liability.
Well, I stand corrected. Sorry, this stems from a conversation about a Canadian thing. About strict liability.
We're talking about presumption, strict presumption, and or strong presumption, and relative presumption, I think.
So that goes straight in. That is contrary to any presumption of innocence, right? That you can't have both. So in this system that we're talking about, is there a presumption of innocence?
Yes.
And there's a presumption of guilt.
Yeah, makes sense.
Well, it's not a presumption of guilt. It's. I mean,
there's no logical.
I can get into their excuses or the way they think is.
Okay.
They say no, we can't prove everything for every trial. We're going to arrest 10,000 pots. We cannot prove again, bring the scientific evidence that pot is dangerous. We just bring it once, and a very important high priest of the Church of Lawyers writes a law that says pot is dangerous now, and we can use this law.
Yeah, but what he says that when you go to a trial, you need to be the trial. The judge will say that you're innocent. You're presumed innocent until you're proven guilty. So how can I be innocent at the same time when you say that I'm guilty because I have marijuana and I can danger others? So there's no.
Because the way he says it, maybe you don't have marijuana. Maybe it wasn't yours.
No, maybe it doesn't matter. But
marijuana.
He assumes you're guilty.
They make a big mistake in waiting. So.
But the judge assumes that you are guilty, and you already have Maria.
He's just waiting for the evidence that there was weed and it was yours.
Okay, so it is. Let's assume. Let's say it is weed and it's yours. It's mine. Whatever. He assumes that you are a danger. But how can you be guilty and not guilty at the same time?
No, but the judge does not assume you're guilty.
He does says that you're guilty because you can endanger others. So you're guilty endangering others. But you can't be
if you're proven
innocent.
guilty.
No. But
That
when
element-
you're in the
Proven
judge,
that you
when
held.
you're in front of a judge, he says to you that you are guilty. Why? Because you're a danger to others. That's why you're in court. But how can you say that I'm a danger to others if I'm assumed that I'm not guilty? How can I be not guilty and guilty at the same time?
If say I admit that drugs
That's
are
something
mine,
else. No, but if
for the judge, it's game over. You admitted
No,
the charge.
but that
That's
doesn't
no
make-
charge.
No,
But there's no charge if you're holding it and you haven't done anything. So you can't say, okay, you're gonna endanger others.
You say so. He doesn't believe so.
No,
or
but he
not.
can't-
He's not. He kind of like defer what I say. Well,
Yeah.
I think the judges really believe their bullshit. Gary,
No,
I think
but
in
it's
the
not
position
that. But about but he says at the same
They're
time.
not-
So if he says to you that you're guilty, well, but there's a danger that you're gonna. So he assumes that you're guilty on doing that already.
if you admit that the weed is yours.
Yeah. So what? But it doesn't make you a dealer. It doesn't make it you sell something. But if
Well,
he says that because of that you said that it's
Because of the legal
yours.
presumption.
Yeah,
He
but he can't
thinks
do
of the
that.
legal presumption as something, he regards it as a moral theory, as a valid moral theory, the theory of legal presumptions. The judge is looking at it as like, is it? If it's written in law, it's a valid moral theory.
But
It's
in
the same
other
thing,
words,
you know?
but in other words, you can ask him. So you're saying that I'm guilty of doing something, and he would say no. So what's the connection? Why are
Oh,
you showing it?
The judges, they are taught to presume. They are
So,
taught
so are you presuming
they
that
are
I'm
not
guilty?
taught, they're told when someone possesses drugs,
He's
you have
guilty.
to presume they're
Going
the
to sell it to
dangerousness.
kids?
judge.
Yeah. So how can you presume that I'm guilty if a minute ago you said that I'm not guilty until proven?
The
So where's the
judge does
proof?
not presume
well,
that
for
you're guilty.
the judge, the missing element, you owning the drugs.
Yeah.
If you own the drugs, you connect, you
I
feel the
connect
missing spot.
No,
for
I
him.
connect only to the
What?
judge. I'm not connecting to you because then he assumes that you're guilty, and you can't say that you're guilty if he doesn't have any evidence. We finished.
I think the key here is about presuming someone guilty of all elements of something they're accused of, rather than presuming them guilty of all but one element and then just putting that one element up to be proven.
Well, it's more than one element. One element is the dangerousness, the risk
No.
of owning a plant, and the other one is the applicability of the law. So the
Well, no. I'm
two elements that are doing. Gary? Whoa.
Oh no.
No.
Okay.
Okay. You're here?
yes.
We lost you first.
Yes.
Okay, good.
So one of the elements is, for instance, that let's say you owned it. You owned the pot. Now he's
Yeah.
presuming you guilty of everything except for the easy to prove thing that you own the pot. Because he already talked to the prosecutor and he knows that it was found in your bag or whatever. It was part of the accusation. Now he's presuming you guilty of everything but some mundane detail, the ownership of the pot. And then he's coming to you and saying, I'm presuming you innocent, and feeling all high and mighty about it.
Yeah, because there's one element missing. For it says
So-
like, okay, before it's the witnesses are called, there's still a missing link. So
Yeah. So he's using that as an excuse to say, I'm presuming you innocent. That would be very dishonest, for one. If you say, I'm presuming you guilty of everything but a mundane little thing. And just as soon as the prosecutor flips that last little switch, you're guilty. To presume someone innocent has far more history than that little trick. I mean, I agree that they try to do that little trick, And that part of our job becomes getting them to be honest that they're setting aside these old concepts of justice and saying, I'm going to presume all of these things. I'm going to make all these legal presumptions without discussing them. And then find you guilty on that last little thing, like, yes, the bag was yours, or the bag was in your pocket.
Yeah.
You can continue. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. I'm just trying to let the conversation evolve, and because there was so much great stuff said. So I guess where are we not on the same page? I mean, I guess, the idea
we are on the same.
That should be honest, and reveal these things. If he just said that, it'd be one thing. If he just said, here, we're not going to have anything approaching any semblance of a fair trial. All I'm wanting them to do is to prove that the bag was in your pocket, and we're going to punish you at that point. You're only here to question whether or not the bag was in your pocket and the evidence about the bag.
Sometimes it's more complicated than just, whether the drugs are really in your pocket, but maybe there are people involved in some kind of a chain of drug, and one person was just bringing it. We want to find out how big or small was his role in the business. So for the judge, it can look like a very important link in the chain.
Okay.
And maybe he perceives himself as a very small
A teller.
Like he says, I don't make the rules. I cannot change the rules. I'm just a little judge, and that's my job. There's this link. There's this missing link in the chain. I don't agree with the change. I think the rules should be changed. But my job, and I'm doing it for 20 years now, or usually less. And there's just one link in the chain that's my. I'm doing this like 20 times, 50 times a day.
So the idea that someone can be innocent.
No,
sorry.
No, you can continue.
So the idea that someone can be innocent, like really innocent in the sense that they owe no duty, no obedience. True innocence, meaning you're not underneath somebody else. That's just foreign. That doesn't exist in the mind of a judge.
צריך הגדרה לזכאי, הגדרה לזכאי.
פשע, זכאי.
נמצא את ההגדרה של זה.
Innocence.
צריך למצוא את ההגדרה כמו שמצאנו
Translation issue.
How about this?
Okay.
It's a very good word. Okay, so guilt and innocence is very related to the word debt, like you owe someone. Sin would be a similar word, but to a God. So innocence means you don't have a relationship of owing them. We have another concept called arm's length, where you're a distance from someone and don't owe them.
An arm's length. Yeah.
Yes. Now, once you're subject to someone, you're not innocent to them. You owe them. You owe them obedience. Citizenship is one of the most common forms of that relationship. So to a judge, they can't imagine someone that's truly independent and free.
There's no such thing. There's no such thing. If you're a citizen, you're not free.
Yeah, and the judge maybe. I mean, I'm not trying to protect the judge at all, and then later on, when we continue the conversation, I'm going to add something about the way I used to see it and the way I think it's practical to see it.
Okay.
But, I don't know what judges think. I don't have the ability to read minds, but it looks like they really believe the bullshit. By the way, they are surprised when about the judge asked me like, where did you learn these questions? Like, how did you come up with those questions? Like what? To ask you for evidence that the law applies, that your law, that I have to obey your laws? Yeah, who taught you that question? That was what he asked me, and he was really surprised. Another judge said, look, if you are living on Mars, then I understand the question, but you're living on planet Earth, in Israel, in Tel Aviv.
No, I live on planet Earth.
So the essence of that question is there such a thing as something that's right and wrong that has nothing to do with power? So is the only way to have a right to do something is to have the strength to do it as well?
Say it again, please.
I'm sorry?
Could you say it again, please? You were cut off.
Yes. So is there such a thing as right and wrong as separated from power? So the idea that something is wrong to do to someone, even though you have power to do it, and something's right to let someone do, even though they don't have the power to defend it. You see, we have the phrase here, might makes right, which is an old fight, you know. If you have the power, the force to impose, does that make it okay? Does that make it ethical?
But that's not a question that you can ask a judge, is it?
You can, and people do, and people do a bit. So to ask a judge, are we here to?
Where it gets to there. If the judge tells you that the jurisdiction equals the ability to force you to comply, then the next question is, do you equate physical force coercion with trade?
So if the question is just, do they have the power to punish you? That's an easy question to answer. But if you're asking if somebody's guilty, if the whole goal to a trial is to say someone is guilty, and I don't know what word is used there to proclaim someone guilty or not guilty, but if your question is, are they guilty, then that brings in an ethical question. It's, do they owe? And that brings in ethics. You know, if the question is just, do we have power, then what's the point in going to court? It's easy. Then all you do is count who has more guns and who has more power.
You and me without weapons.
Outside of the court.
Judge, I'm coming up to the stage.
I'm sorry.
Are you saying you're stronger than me?
No, he's just laughing about all of it.
No, I'm saying that we're never stronger. If the question in court is just who's strongest, then why bother go to court? But if the question is they're trying to justify using power, which is usually the case, they're trying to justify the use of power.
The whole thing.
לא, אבל זה דווקא משפט טוב. כאילו, אתה מצדיק את השימוש בכוח שלך.
As I always say, it's all built on, it has to look good. If it doesn't look good, their power withers away.
And that's why I'm coming to the honesty part, is trying to get a judge to be bound up in being honest, or at least being clearly dishonest, or being secretive, especially when you're asking questions about what you're accused of and the presumptions and where the presumptions come from. If you're being presumed guilty of one of the pieces, if it's presumed that the codes apply, if it's being presumed that the legislature and these codes are superior to you, then what's left? Then all you're left with is minor things like proving that the bag was in your pocket. And it's really things that are pretty easy to prove usually. There might be some people, it's like, oh, it turns out it was in a back seat or something like that, and someone else was closer to it. But that's just a gamble then. And it has nothing to do with any actual concern for what's right, for ethics or anything. It's just concerned with power. And that's the conversation they want to have, is we're just trying to make it look good that we're using power.
I'm just imagining the judge saying that.
Some of the conversations are interesting. Some folks, who role play a lot in trying to get a judge painted into a corner, we call it, to where he can't make it look like he's doing an honest job and still try to help the prosecutor in the way he usually does.
Yeah. Could you give us an example of a conversation that you remember that you had maybe with a judge or somebody else? Yeah.
I should. It'd take me a minute to think of something. Sorry.
We can go to commercials.
What's an interesting honesty from a judge?
Any situation that happened to you that
it's been a few years since I've gotten in arm's reach of a judge. I have had some interesting run-ins, but not as lately as others. I usually try to use some paperwork to steer clear as much as I can. But part of it is I practice a lot in order to make sure that I can deal with honesty.
how many times did you go to the court?
Probably less than 10 actually in a court.
Okay, so
How many months of my life was spent writing paperwork? A lot more than that.
Oh, you did all of it with paperwork and not in front of the judge?
I have I've had bad experiences in front of judges, like many people. Spent time in jail because of those bad experiences, and so I have I work very hard. I work 10 times as hard to not be in that room. So I don't know if I encourage people to follow me in that kind of habit, because it's so much more work to fight the idea that you need to show up in a courtroom. But it's
When you mean
I just have a problem.
very hard.
Sorry?
No, you're not the only one. But what do you mean when you say you're working really hard not to be in a courtroom? Like you just answer them? And,
How do you do that?
Yeah.
Couple different things were different. One of them, for instance, was a couple of big companies trying to drag me in to testify against each other, because I had some key information they both wanted on the record. And I was named in the suit as one of the people being sued. So I had to, basically what it amounts to, it's called challenging standing. I had this conversation like we're talking about, more or less by paperwork. Fortunately for me, in the back and forth, where I mentioned that there was no evidence that hold on, how did I phrase it? There was no evidence that I related to something. It's basically no evidence that the accusation applied. And in the response, the it wasn't the prosecutor at this point, it was one of the lawyers, wrote that, despite the fact that there's no evidence that blah blah blah, we don't feel that we should owe him money for trying to drag him into court. Basically, I wrote a motion that they should have to pay me for trying to drag me into court. Not that I recommend this at this point now, but at the time that was a strategy I used. So they said, despite the fact that we have no evidence to drag him into court, we shouldn't have to pay him. So because he just basically canned his whole idea, I wrote a thank you. And I wrote a thank you and said, I tell you what, I'll forego any desire for money, given that you came clean, and I'll regard this as a finished thing. Now, they kept trying to name me again and drag me back, but I kept going to the fact that they'd already admitted
that you don't have any evidence.
Yeah, there was already a settled issue because I forgave them the money. And after a while, they didn't have a way to remove me from the paperwork. There's no official way to do such things, apparently, without a hearing to excuse someone and all that kind of stuff. So they just turned me into an et al, which means like and other people. And then after a while, they removed that too, and they stopped including me in the emailings and in the letters, and just did without.
And when you were in front of a judge in a courthouse, do you remember, was it about a law, any laws that you broke, or what was it about usually?
I've had a custody issue that I had to fight on with some accusations of wrongdoing and that good stuff. It's all been resolved now, but the last thing where it was a prosecution. There was a lot of back and forth. It's many years ago, and I was in a different strategy at the time. But they were trying to play games, and I was trying to come up with information then too. It was slightly different approach than is mainstream now, and this goes back kind of before I even come across much of Mark's stuff and when developments were different. But because I was trying to ask them for some basic information, what they'd do is they'd schedule me in different courthouses. One judge would say, I'm rescheduling this in downtown, and they'd send me downtown, but then they'd actually cancel that one downtown and schedule it at like 15 minutes later up in this other city. Now, in that instance, I went early and found out that they'd done it and made it back in time. But ultimately, I mean, I was found in contempt for trying to get at some information, spent a week in jail over it. So not exactly a success story on that one, because they can always, I don't know how the contempt powers are over there, but here a judge can pretty much decide that you're going to spend some time in jail. No matter, there's no justice involved.
Pretty much close to that.
Yeah. I have a friend. Sorry?
Scared of that. We haven't gotten to that point, but it's in our back minds. You had a friend sorry.
Yeah, I have a friend and a coworker here at where I work, and he's not here anymore, but he spent a year in jail. He basically wrote a curse word on a document that he didn't want to sign. And the judge sentenced him to contempt forever.
What?
He sentenced him to contempt with no release date. Now, he was in jail for a year, and in that meantime, a friend of his passed the bar and started appealing.
Possible, no?
Yeah.
Technically possible to appeal.
Well, it wasn't an appeal. It was a writ.
Basically, in
So
Israel,
wait.
I just want to interject. It's kind of like more relaxed in Israel. The judge legally cannot throw you or punish you for contempt of court. If you like argue with him or something, he can warn you, and only after you've been duly warned, he can punish you. So basically, but if you're not obeying a judge's order, so if there was an order or sentencing and you had to pay something and you didn't, you go to jail for contempt. But if you just like argue with the judge, the first time he should warn you. So one of the tricks is like to say, I warn you, don't argue with me. And your natural response, like your instinct, your reflex would be to say, I'm not arguing. And that's an argument. Now you got you. So
Can I ask you what happened to that
that's a little
friend?
difference.
Yeah. So ultimately, he got out after the year. So fortunately, the motion succeeded because it was found that a contempt without end doesn't satisfy justice, and it was overturned.
But it's so weird because it wasn't a contempt of the court. It was just a document. How can they prove that it was a contempt?
No. He wrote on the document "F-U" basically, or something like it.
That's fine, but it's not a contempt of the court. It's a contempt of the document.
Well, they felt otherwise and threw him in jail for a year. But he didn't know how long he'd be in jail for. It was in contempt with no release date. If the judge had died, the friend of his had to even find a way to get it addressed to get him back out of jail.
So crazy. Did you hear about success stories with the system? Do you know about somebody that succeeded? What is a success story? Let's ask it like that.
Well, Joe in Hawaii has some very good success stories. There's good videos. I think his channel is still called Cop Watch Hawaii. And he goes through the entire process, pretty much live. You hear him talking, making videos and talking as he's progressing. Felony counts, raided his home and all that.
Raided his
charges. Raided, where they break into your home with the.
Why did they do that?
I'm sorry.
Why did they do that?
Is that not common there as well?
Just wait. They raided his home because drugs.
Someone told him.
Oh, okay. Drugs. Did they know that he's using, or what was it all about?
Right. I don't really remember the details of how it came to be that they raided his home. I mean, ultimately, it's just a disobedience problem, right? They didn't like the fact that he, they just didn't like some fact of him. I mean, I don't want to talk about. I don't want to speculate on the rest of his character and business. I mean, all I know is that they raided his home.
Yeah.
I mean, I know him to be a decent person, and I don't suspect that there were any victims involved, or even hypothetical or potential victims involved.
What is a success story? Success story, which means that you get out of court with nothing?
Okay, so the idea that the victim, an innocent person who's accused, as I said before, that's a victim. That's someone who is a victim to the state and the judges. Getting compensation for that is super rare. Success, I guess, is just a damage control where you're just lessening the amount of damage that they're intending to do. I have
a different perspective. I think that success is when you're destroying their attack, you're destroying their PR, you're clogging the system, you're monkey wrenching the system. You're throwing a monkey wrench into the wheels of the system.
I agree.
So, it is a success because you're making way more. But you're getting way more than just saving a few bucks or some time. If enough people like you do it, then we're done.
I agree.
So,
I agree. Exposing injustice is a very good success, I would say.
even if
you
you
know,
lose the money,
Yeah.
then
Yeah, there's people who have lost, and lost in a way that made it so clear that justice was not even going to be had. That the court was not interested in right and wrong. That can be a success for freedom, for the freedom movement, or whatever you want to call it.
We have it here with the murder.
you know, I always say, you know, think like, yeah, but the judge know that it's not fair, it's never fair, and so on. But I say the judge always goes home with a feeling like everybody treated him like he's important, smart, honest guy, professional, and that's the way he comes home every day with his ego bloated. And when I go to court, the judge comes home angry because he was exposed and as being not professional and dishonest. And I think that's the real win. That's the real success. If you can really take away that great feeling of being like an important, wise, honest person.
As we get more and more people who are broadcasting their court, who are recording their preparation for court, recording their court conversations, and it becomes more clear, people have a very strange impression of what judges are like, until they come into a court, and if they're challenging these things, you get a whole new perspective on judges and how uninterested they are in justice.
We have a really big story here with the murder. Everybody knows that they're not looking for justice. Oh, Ruth with the and we have a judge that is corrupted. We already know that the court is corrupted. We have two big, huge stories here in Israel that shows it. Like, it really, really shows that it's corrupted. It's not news.
Well,
Everybody will tell you judges are corrupt and so on.
Like,
so,
what did you say?
I wish it was everybody here. I know it's people are still surprised. I mean, even people who come in, you know, with you know, drug related charges, you know, victimless crimes, if you want to call them that. They're usually very surprised at how little the courts are concerned with anything about right.
Most people here, when you talk to them, you ask them, do you think the court are giving justice? They'll tell, no, mostly no. Judges are crooks. Yes, they're crooks. And then you give them a name of a specific judge, like a traffic, and you tell them, oh, Mr. So-and-so, the judge so-and-so is a criminal. Then they're going to say, like, oh, why do you call him a criminal? You just said judges are corrupt. Yes, but why do you call this specific judge a criminal? And that's the important work that we do in this project. We bring the evidence for each one of them, so we can call them criminals.
I think Ruth David did a really good job on that. With a high Ruth David, the judge.
Ruth David.
Yeah, she's corrupted and all of her friends are corrupted.
בסוף שלחו את זה שחשף את השחיתות שלה
כן, והיא כדרך אגב אפילו את הדיונים שלה לא רושמים. לא, כלום, לא יודע.
They just tell me a story about some corrupt judge that they didn't
in a high chain, and it's a very high chain, and she went to court, but they didn't do anything to her. They didn't even, you know, that they erased court day or whatever. It happened,
protocol.
But they erased the protocol.
Yeah, absolute immunity.
And the guy that did tell about her, he went to jail
for insulting a public
figure,
for offending a public figure.
Public clerks and stuff.
And we have here a person that was charged with murder,
Framed.
but framed,
With a
and
murder.
most of Israelis know that he was framed, and there are a lot of evidence that prove differently, and we all know it's corrupted. And probably the one that did kill the person is,
Still out there.
and he's a police son. He's connected to the police. Anyway.
Yeah, some son of a
Some
policeman killed
killed.
somebody and they framed someone else.
יותר.
And everybody knows about it.
איך קוראים לה?
It's like they don't care. They don't care. We all know that they're corrupted, or most of us, 99%. And they're just continue doing their stuff. It's amazing.
So I would have, before this moment, presumed Israel and people there to be very proper. How do I say? Concerned with obeying society structures. You know,
People
less
are afraid.
concerned with freedom, perhaps.
Yeah, so I would say so. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, you have to give some
Yeah.
freedoms up for security problem.
And they're very afraid. They would rather pay the 200 fines instead of going in front of a judge, because they know, people know that the judge is not.
Really?
But they're
So
Yeah.
I would think of people there, because America has this reputation of being super, like the people being super concerned with independence,
yeah.
much more so than Europeans and various people. And I would have presumed Israel to be very
Yeah, correct. Then you're
ordered,
correct.
very
Correct
ordered.
in your position. You have to give up some freedom for some security, and we have big security problems here, so we have to give freedom big time.
And it's okay that we have corrupted judges, it's only a little bit.
It's better than anarchy.
Yeah.
So that brings us to your Freedom Festival. Is that an attempt to find a better balance?
Say it again?
Is this the name of its Freedom Festival? Free Man Festival?
Festival, where we declare the independence from the government. We put up like an independence declaration where we declare personal freedom from the judges. We're telling them, from the politicians and bureaucrats, we tell them, I'm a free man, I'm not your slave, you're not my servants, you're not my representatives, you were never any of these roles. We want nothing to do with you. Thank you very much. So that's basically the declaration, and signed it. So that's way more than twice than the Declaration of Independence of the State of Israel. This one has only 37 signatures.
That's 37 more than the U.S. Constitution has. There are no signatories on the Constitution.
There aren't?
Nope. It was witnesses. They didn't sign themselves as signatures.
They didn't?
That's correct. Yeah, they just signed as witness, basically, like a notary would.
I don't think we have Declaration of Freedom. No, we don't. They have. החוקה. אין לנו חוקה. Yeah, the basic. Well, at least you have the basic. What's called
Constitution.
Constitution. We don't have that.
So
Yeah, but nobody signed it yet.
They're more like guidelines.
See,
Their characters say.
the trouble we have is still the same. Oh, I'm sorry.
Say again?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. There was a slight delay. I didn't mean to talk over the gentleman in the back left. You still have the same problem that we do, where right and wrong can still get shoved aside. So
What?
I don't.
We do have.
Yes.
Oh, just don't want to talk about the part where why you have to be obedient. That's just given.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, the Constitution sometimes gets in the way. I'm sorry. The Constitution sometimes gets in the way of trying to talk about what's right and what's wrong for a lot of people, and so I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, all in all, because it seems to draw people to a point of part right, part wrong, and people kind of stand on that point as being, that's the Constitution. It's right or wrong or whatever. I'm going to care about these rights, and I'm not going to care about these wrongdoings, and I'm not going to care about this violence because the Constitution doesn't talk about it. It's a different problem.
Why is it walking? Oh, it's so. I never thought about that. הוא אומר, אנחנו הולכים לפי החוקה, מה שכתוב בחוקה סבבה, אבל הדברים הלא טובים לא כתובים בחוקה, אז אפשר לעשות את זה. אם זה כתוב סבבה, אבל אם זה לא כתוב, אז אנחנו לא מוכנים. אז כאילו בין השורות כזה, כמו שאנחנו. אם לא כתוב פה של הכלב אסור להשתין, אבל שכתוב שם, משהו כזה. לא, אני אסביר את זה אחרת. אסור לעשן, נגיד, אוקיי? אבל לא כתוב איזה סיגריה, אז אתה יכול לעשן. לא כתוב, אסור לעשן. נראה לי שזה
people, when they see that they can carry the government permits them to carry guns, and they say, oh, it's the Constitution, it's something very specific, and they can feel like the Constitution is powerful because the government gives them the right to carry guns. Whereas in Israel, the basic laws, which are like something similar to the Constitution, specific in them. They just talk about your general rights to freedom and respect and property rights, like the general, like in general, big generality. So then when they raid your home and ask you to identify and steal your income, you still have the right to keep property, you still have the right to freedom. You can't prove that the right has been violated, Right is so abstract thing.
But
anyhow,
does your word for right also line up with the idea of right and wrong?
Sort of.
Okay.
It's like with innocent, actually, right? Or zchut זה זכאי.
Can I ask you something not related to the conversation?
Please.
Where are you? This graffiti behind you, it's interesting.
Oh, it's a wall. It's a painting. I'm at my work.
Whoa.
Like,
what do you do?
I write software and deal with computers.
Oi. So let's look here. Just gonna set that. כן.
לא בטוח, פעם שעברה...
טוב, הוא היה בינתיים לשיחה.
הוא בן מהעבודה כאילו מוסף את השידורים האלו בעבודה שלו, זה לא...
עבודה טובה,
כן, איזה קיר מדליק.
שם אין שם עוד אנשים, זה לא פחות.
היה שם איזה בן אדם אחד.
כן. זה פודקאסט משם, כאילו, זה
עבור הבוקר, נכון.
אוקיי, פתאום אנחנו קולטים, אנחנו מפריעים לבן אדם בעבודה. סימון.
פירטק, שטאון, תראה את זה.
זהו.
אוקיי. אני רוצה לדבר איתו ברגע שיחזור. על...
תודה לרגע.
אני בודק.
היא דווקא מה זה בסדר? אני מתנהגת בסדר.
בטח, היא בסדר, אני בודק, היא בסדר. היה לנו פעם ויכוח כזה על האם שופטים, do judges really believe the bullshit or they're just pretending.
לא, חלק אני במילה שהם מאמינים לבולשיט של עצמם.
Because from my experience, I went to I handled 6 cases, I had 2 appeals. So I saw lots of judges. I also went with Matan and I went with Ofer.
בוא'נה, אתה לא מתקף אותו, הוא היה רק ב10. הוא היה ב10 פעמים מול בית משפט, אתה כבר היית ב6.
6 משפטים, כן?
נו, הוא היה רק ב10. אתה עוד מתקף אותו. עוקף.
חצי חלילה, שאף אחד מאיתנו לא יהיה עוד פעם אחת, אחי. הייתי מספיק.
אנחנו נראים את זה? וואי, תראה איך אני נראית.
Super dark. I was trying to play with the lamp and maybe bring it here, but it's not as strong as that.
רגע, תשים את זה, בוא נעלה את האור.
תראה, look, I can see your face.
לא, אני עדיין נראית את המודע.
So,
התלהבת מהאנגלית?
his position, Gary's position, and many other people's was that
כן.
and my position was, I think they really get confused. They don't understand what we're talking about. They don't understand where we come from. And Gary's position and many other people's in the project were like, no, they know and they try to hide it.
אייל, אולי חלק כאלה וחלק כאלה. אני אגיד לך משהו. עד שאני הייתי.
כאילו, דיבורי קלאסיקה הזאת, ואז tu devi leggere
אוקיי.
le scienziati באנגלית.
לא רואים.
זה מוקלט.
Yeah, I think to the judge, he knew. He was really smart, and he noticed. He noticed what I'm trying to do. Very careful. And the second time, I noticed that because he asked me that from our computer, from the security, not security,
national security,
social security. It's written that you were in Israel, in the country, in these dates, and he said it really smart way, very smart.
Yeah,
and the judge would offer. He knew what he's going to do because he asked him. You told me that the question that he asked was a question that mixed over a little bit. You remember that you told me that he didn't answer?
The guy with offer is let's not.
But you know what? I would say that some of them don't know and some of them don't.
Anecdotal evidence. We're talking about whether judges really believe.
He's not here.
I'm here.
Oh,
so whether judges really believe the bullshit and get confused and
here you are.
And they feel like we're crazy, or whether they know that they're lying and they have to conceal the deception. And I think your position was that they're trying to conceal their deception, and many other people in the project were in that position. And my position was like to kind of like not really defend the judge, but just accept that it seemed like they really genuinely believe their bullshit. And lately, like this week I saw a video by Gary Francione. You probably heard the name. Gary Francione is he's a lawyer, feminist, socialist, and he's a vegan, and he's a speaker for veganism. He's very big for making videos and lectures about veganism. That thing is doing good. And he talked about carnism, the ideology, which is a theory that there is an ideology called carnism, that people who eat meat, they really don't understand. Like, they really don't understand the suffering that they cause. This ideology is called carnism, and some vegans believe in carnism. They believe that those who eat meat don't really understand what they're doing, and he goes against it. He said, if you're eating meat, you know the price that animals pay. Like, you're not ignorant of what's happening.
So there's two things you could mean by understand, and I'm trying to figure out which of the two. So one meaning of understand is that they have it in mind and that they know it. And the second,
like they know that the law is bullshit, but that you have to obey the law is like bullshit, and they try to conceal it, or they think like 1 + 1 is 2. You have to obey the law if you're in Israel.
But there's a difference between knowing a position, with the veganism, for instance, that knowing a position and agreeing with the conclusions, I guess, or well, not the conclusions, but really the premise. So knowing somebody's premise, like the beginning of their argument, and agreeing with it are two very different things. So, for example, a sociopath, some people cannot understand emotions. Now they can know about them, but they can't mirror it.
Yeah.
But and some people wouldn't agree with the person you just spoke about, and I understand I don't know which meaning of understanding you would be using there. Do you mean understand the you said understand the suffering? Is that the word you used, suffering?
Well, with carnism, you'll have to look at the definition probably, but it's somehow about not understanding the consequences, realizing
Yeah, realize has the same problem. To know about them versus to feel them. You see, that's the distinction. So to understand something, I'm trying to figure out if you're meaning like to comprehend it, like a mental thing, or if you mean to agree and feel the same way about it.
Like they suppress it. Carnism is it's like theory that meat eaters suppress about the suffering of animals to such a degree that they are not actually not guilty because they suppress it so much that they aren't aware of it.
But
Guilt,
do they have the right to suppress that?
Yes.
I mean, it's like a subconscious automatic thing, like if I can prove that you weren't
Let me guess,
really
you're not
aware.
vegan.
Pardon?
You're not vegan.
No.
Have fun. Okay, everything's fine.
But I'm trying to entertain your point, and I'm trying to explore it. So,
Having fun? I wanted to ask you before we got disconnected, what do you do for a living? You said computers?
yes, software.
We were interested, how is it that you're in the middle of work, you can talk to us?
Do a broadcast.
I have some flexibility.
Interesting. Okay.
I spend a lot of time working. A very, very great amount of time working.
Oh, it's the same here in Israel. I heard that it's everywhere pretty much, that people work like 12 hours a day. Something's crazy.
Wow.
Places are better.
A lot.
Australia.
Wow. There's a lot to do.
In Australia, they're putting chips on.
That's something else.
Is there anything you want to continue with the cannabis?
You were mentioning that you wanted to ask me something a bit off topic before.
Yeah, that's what I asked about the wall behind you, and you answered, and then we got disconnected.
That's right. That's
But
right.
Is there
That's just some decoration.
Is there anything else that you want to add, or something important that you wanted to tell us that you haven't talked about?
Oh, there's always a lot of conversations. A lot of conversations can spark. So I tend to like most topics in some way, shape, or form. Well, almost all of them. So no, we can leave it for another chat.
I mean about the project, sorry. But if there is anything else that you wanted to tell us, or something important that it's good for us to know.
Well, I guess the first thing is to understand the difference between ethics and obedience. and work on that. You know, again, you guys are working on that there in an environment where I would think that'd be more difficult, because of the security, because that security issue we were just talking about, where it'd be very difficult and people would be very afraid of freedom.
It's like crazy. You don't want to be obedient. You're crazy. It's the mentality. Plus, they got the Jewish brain. You know, they got the Jewish people. They're a little bit sharper. The judges. They're more evil and more smart.
It's a shame that you know, freedom is not thought of. Well, obedience is safety, right? The only safe thing you can do is obey.
In God we trust. Now the judges are the God.
That's a shame. But yeah. So I think we're at, you're a little ways away from, I think, Mark getting connected.
Yeah, he hasn't written anything in Skype, so I don't know. Maybe he's going to bail. Yeah, maybe he's going to bail. I don't know. He didn't get a response from him, so.
When was it scheduled? What time?
Like 10 minutes ago.
Oh. Somebody called you. But somebody did call you on Skype. What's that?
No, it's something else. So we had another speaker bail today, and we had a lot of guests who were supposed to come to the festival and they didn't show up. But all the good people are here, and we're having really great fun.
Very good.
Eyal got a lot of food here. So if you were here, you would have a lot.
Even
I
though
said, you know, if people will come, I don't want people hungry, you know. So
we can feed on the whole beach.
Very good.
That's amazing.
We were supposed to be in the forest on a mountain. And we got there, and the whole place dried out and was full of thorns. We couldn't open any tent there. We had to move the whole thing to a new place. So we found this nice beach here.
on the Sea of Galilee.
It's like a huge lake. It's like a big lake, relatively big lake.
Very nice.
With water. We went to swim today. Had lots of fun.
If it was light around it, I would have showed you where we are, but it's so dark. Well, they did turn on the lights.
You'll see the pictures on
A little bit
Facebook.
of your faces. Mostly it's just the light in the middle.
You will see the pictures on the Facebook event page later.
Yeah.
It's 11 o'clock now. What time is it where you are?
It's 2 o'clock?
Time.
2 o'clock?
Oh,
Afternoon? So it's
In the
basically a
afternoon.
long lunch.
Friday or Friday, right?
yeah, Thursday.
Friday, not Saturday.
Yeah, Friday.
Rock on, yes, Friday.
It's okay. I had a whole day. I went through the whole day that I thought it's a different way, and only the day after I realized that I'm in the wrong day. So crazy. Really. I'm like, shit, I gave another day. Where was it? You're fine. Wait, so we disturbing you in lunchtime?
Well, no, I'm gladly doing this. I
Did you eat
prefer it to
anything?
taking lunch. What?
Did you eat anything?
I have a little bit before. I won't tell you if you're vegan.
She's asking,
I'll spare you.
she's asking because we have so much food here left, so we're trying to sell it cheap to anyone who will take it.
I tell you what, I'll probably do some vegan meals over the weekend. My daughter's vegan.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Oh, I'm just thinking about the technology. It's not. If technology, that would be so great.
Yeah. Like, wait a minute, we're sending you split and you get some chulent.
Chunt.
Get some what? Get some what?
He doesn't know. It's
Grains.
Polish
with
Jewish
Very heavy.
well-known stew.
Okay. Okay.
Eyal could feed everybody knew like that.
It's like the Israeli have falafel, so you have in the States falafel, so we also have chun.
לשגר אוכל בידיר.
I don't recall if I've ever had that.
Yeah. Well,
אתה מעביר את זה
you need a
לפקס.
Polish mother for that.
Okay.
And a Jewish mother, as a matter of fact.
No, I don't have.
Oh,
Either one of those.
Work on it. Because I was thinking, like, you can put it and you fax it over, and then it just jumps on you and you have food. It's so cool.
Remote tasting, right? Your little device. I'll just put it in my mouth.
So cool.
And you put it in the soup, and I taste it.
And you get the yeah.
If you were in the Matrix, so just program the taste so we can taste it. If you were in the Matrix.
He's in the Matrix.
You know, like. And
You know. לך תדע, אבל אנחנו...
you can download it
Maybe we are connected and we don't know it.
to the Matrix.
Yeah.
Gary's like, what the fuck is going on? What are you talking about?
Anyway, I had a lot of fun talking to you. It was very interesting.
Likewise.
It was very interesting to see the difference between, but I hope see the system. It's a point that I didn't know about.
Likewise. I mean, I hear from Eyal about some things over there, but, you know, I kind of imagined that it was just him in a freedom movement over there at all.
We're trying.
Evidence.
No, he just,
Empirical evidence.
no, really, he took us from the street and said, okay, come and talk with somebody from the United States. It will be fine. We just met him like 5 minutes ago.
Oh, wow. Well, thanks. I'm glad it was you. It was great.
Sense of humor. Everybody, every time it works.
So, any more question, or we'll let Gary do
Very
some?
very
to eat
cool.
something.
Yeah, and we'll let you go to eat some chuns or something, or falafel, your choice. And it was a lot of fun, and very interesting, very inspiring.
You can come and visit us.
Yeah, you're more than welcome.
That's great.
As we said, we have a lot of food. So
We can save it for you. Tell us only when you're coming.
Just let us
I
know.
can cook again, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Very much.
It's been great.
All right, hey,
All right.
you too.
All right, Eyal, I'm going to
Bye.
disconnect here. Bye-bye.
Bye.